This is Mentally Dope. Join us, Charmaine and Jasmine, two Black licensed therapists, as we build a bridge between mental health and Black culture. Come on, it's gonna be dope.
Real G's move in silence like lasagna. That was Lil Wayne said.
Is that what he said? He shouldn't have said it. Oh my God. Hello, welcome to Mentally Dope. I'm Jasmine.
I'm Charmaine.
And we're going to talk to you a little bit about something just so
near
wonderful.
And dear to our hearts.
Just it's exciting, it's good, it's positive. You know, we're not always talking about stuff that's like dark and depressing. We're also talking about good stuff, okay? Black boy joy, Black boy glow up, like all of that. That's what we're talking about today.
Black men glowing up. Mm-hmm. Let's give them their respect.
Yes. It is. I don't know if it's I think it's part of it is trendy, but also part of it it's like it's just time. Mm-hmm. Like maybe the age of the men that we're talking about, or the age that, you know, like people are starting to look for healing and do some new stuff. So there are very, very prominent men, Black men as well, that are just glowing up, right? That are like going to therapy, talking about mental health, changing things in their life, being public and authentic about their journeys in the world and stuff they've been through.
I think this is the thing, though, for you, like for us to identify that it's trendy, but it's a trend for one that I'll get with because it's a positive trend, but it's something else too that you can't really fake the funk, because we're gonna see.
I don't think they're just doing it, but I think that because there's less of a stigma than there was before, that makes it easier for people to be like, okay.
Well, I mean, in the sense that we know that there are certain people who will say things like, "Oh, I'm healing," and then we be like,
"Well, yeah, it's a thing that we say, and we can." I'm gonna try real hard not to name some people that we know are healing, but we have not seen fruits of that. But that's not necessarily our business.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and like name a couple of examples of some of like the men who we have seen, and we're like, "Oh, baby, that is like a glow up," and I just want to like shower you with all of your flowers because I'm so proud and I'm so happy for these moments. Like Method Man, oh y'all, like that's when I'll just pause for a second because we're not only just like seeing it mentally, but like we're seeing it physically, like how he literally and he equates.
That's how you feel?
No, I mean like I'm like, come on now.
What he look like?
Method Man look the way he be looking the way he looking. Okay. But he says that he equates the way that he looks currently to his healing, to him recognizing that the person that he was in the past was an unhealed person who was not taking care of themselves. Mm-hmm. And now he is. I mean, we see the fruits of that in multiple ways. And like the way that he's interacting, the works that he's doing, because he's doing some like amazing projects. But also in like the fact that he looked the way he looked. I mean, it is what it is.
He always looks the way he looked.
I'm also going to highlight, because I remember he did an interview. Who was that interview with? Did you see the interview that he did where he was apologizing to Destiny's Child for the way that he treated them years ago?
No.
So it was like
interesting.
It was an interview that he did, and he was like that, like him being unhealed and having like all this like negative stuff within him. Which also, if you ever watch the Wu-Tang Saga and you see that there was like some aspects of his life that you can tell.
Did they not have a documentary?
Yes. But the show, the show is actually a really, really good show. But it talks about his childhood a little bit, and you can see that he has some stuff. He also has some anger issues as a kid and things like that of that nature. But he says that it was like one night in the club, and it was like loud, and like the girls came up to talk to him, and he was rude to them. And he was like, all these years later, I think back about that, and I feel bad because he was like, there was no need for me to be rude to like these young fans. So he was like apologizing for like his actions.
Did he apologize to them?
I mean, like he looked into the camera and was like, Beyonce, Kelly, Michelle, like
that's not what we're here for. But I'm just saying, an apology is beautiful. Also, apologize to the person before you apologize in public. That's neither here nor there.
Maybe,
but we can
Tina, we posted it, so they saw it.
Tina heard about it.
So
she heard about it.
Yeah, but we're talking about people like that, people who like, you know, are open and vulnerable about mistakes and like things that acquire to their healing and like actually you know, making changes.
And are public about it. I think that makes a difference too. This is not
Yeah.
like something of like I went through years of therapy and like now that I'm on my deathbed, I'm writing a tell-all about what happened. Like I like that people are saying it as they're going through it because that helps another person be like, oh, if he can do it, I can do it, right? Like there's
Yeah.
less of a stigma
Yeah.
because someone that I know and I look up to is doing something for their mental health.
Well, let's look at another one, Kevin Hart, and we saw Kevin Hart go through a lot of stuff in the beginning of his career, and
I mean, he's been through a lot of stuff in general, though.
Yeah.
Work outside of work.
yeah, and him publicly now being like, I'm making changes. Like stuff happened. I don't want to be that person anymore. I'm trying to build a brand that's going through like generations. I can't be involved in certain things anymore, and proud of it. Just like proud to like see him like literally make these changes and be like, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it for my family. It's not worth it for my career that I have like sacrificed so much for. Like, I'm not doing it. And once again, hoping that he can be that example to other people who are like, it's not worth it.
Yeah. And like there's something different.
Jay-Z is another one.
Got a whole album about it.
Yeah, and I always think about like his old songs about like never gonna do it, never gonna fall, never gonna never gonna have these issues, like not gonna do it, and then we see him like take years to like publicly claim the relationship and like be there and like be this family man, and then him like them having issues and actually being vulnerable about it, to put it out there and be like, we had problems. And he went to therapy. And he's also very, very public, not only about his own healing for him personally. He brought in, like, his mom and stuff like that. Like, issues that he had with that.
But it also shows you, too, like, the more that you know yourself and work through your own issues, the better you're able to show up for other people. Right? Because I think the consensus between both Beyonce and Jay-Z of, like, he's been through a lot of stuff. He's been through a lot of trauma. Who hasn't, in general? Who's not been through stuff in their life? But what was getting in the way of us, like, actually, like, loving each other and being functional is the fact that he didn't do the work he needed to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he didn't process any of it. He didn't resolve any of it. And it was showing up in our relationship.
Yeah.
Which is the same for anybody. It's not necessarily a man thing or a black male thing. It's an everybody thing. But I think even more so for black men.
Yeah. And what I love, and I was actually just telling one of my clients about this the other day, when you can own part of your story, other people can't own it for you. So I do love that about them, that it's not something that they allow people to use against them, because guess what? I already said it. What you gonna say? I already told y'all it happened. I owned it. I made a song about it. And I got, like, what you gonna do? Like, it's our life.
Yeah.
And so when you can own it and you're not still triggered by it, other people don't have that control over you anymore.
Yeah. And, like, there's not an emotional response tied to it. Right? If you have, let's just say we're talking about Jay-Z. So let's say you've worked through the fact that you've been through stuff, you had maybe a hard childhood, you grew up, you sell crack, like all of these things, and you've processed it. When somebody takes that and says, former crack dealer did X, Y, and Z, right, and not call you by your name that you've been known by as for like forever, it doesn't elicit the same emotional response of like, oh my gosh, somebody, like this is somebody somewhere and somehow out of my identity. When you already know that's not who I am. That's not the way I see myself. I've done the work around it that it's not going to make me explode or give me a big reaction anymore.
Yeah, 100%.
And like that's the difference.
Someone else who I think did very similar or like, on that, Kendrick Lamar. We just had a full album of K-Dot going through like all his therapy sessions. Like daddy issues, romantic issues, childhood issues. We just went through the issues.
I don't know. I haven't listened.
And I will. And he was very, very vulnerable about like a lot. But I think he's always been vulnerable in a lot of his songs. I think that all of his songs have been like diaries into like, yeah,
a specific time in his life for sure.
Or to like just like issues. I think that like people always talk about swimming pools, and that song is not about getting drunk and being happy about it. It's about having a family that struggles with addiction. So it's like, even stuff like that, like, it's just vulnerable about, like, your life and the things that you're going through. And then, like, we see him, too, is, like, shifting the way that he shows up, shifting the way that he deals with stuff, being a family man and being married and having kids and
and like being in the public eye. I think there's a difference that a lot of these people that we're saying, maybe they used to be in the public eye, like they used to do interviews, they used to like do lots of things publicly that they don't do anymore. And I wonder if that corresponds with the fact that their mental health is improving, changing.
Because sometimes it literally is protecting my peace. I don't want to deal with you asking me questions I don't want to answer, or you trying to like throw things in my face. And let's add on somebody else, Big Sean, who literally went like MIA for a while too, just like Kendrick Lamar. Like he went MIA for a while too to deal with himself, and he said that I needed a break. I needed to go to get some therapy.
Did he struggle with self-harm? Was he one of the ones who struggled with self-harm?
I'm not sure if he said that he was.
Double check, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that brings up somebody else too. Like, I think that he may still struggle, so I'm not sure if I would fully put him on the list, but I could see how he protects himself from outside people, which would definitely be Lil Wayne. He talks a lot about, like, a lot of the things that he's went through as a child, about him trying to commit suicide and all of those things as well too. And he is definitely one who lives in his own little bubble now, which is sometimes healthy and unhealthy. But I think that it is more of a protection factor of I just don't want to deal.
I mean, I don't know any of these people, but I also see the need for the bigger that you get, the less access that people need to have
100%
to you. And not even the bigger that you get, but just the older that you get, understanding that like other people's energy, the way they live their life, that impacts you, and you need to be selective about who's in your space.
Yeah. Oh, I agreed. I think that sometimes too that's like the hard space, because people feel like that when they're trying to come up that they have to be more accessible, and then sometimes you can get to a point where you're just like, no.
And like in the same, like Method Man did the same thing, right? Like he's like not out in public in the same way as he was before, because that wasn't good for his mental health.
Yeah.
And like these are all like famous people and examples of famous people, but I think that they can be an example to us about how to do this in our own lives.
I like the fact that with us highlighting these people and also highlighting like Brandon Marshall and Kid Cudi and Kevin Gates and all these Charlamagne the God of course,
right,
and all of these other individuals who are open about these things and showing, but we're talking about like something that has been such a taboo thing that Black men cannot admit that they need to heal. They can't admit that something is
they can't admit their vulnerabilities.
Yes,
because then I mean that's not a good thing, right? It's a protective thing. If you were to be vulnerable, then that means you're at risk of like dying, losing your social position, like all of these things. It only has negative consequences. No good consequences can come of it.
And I mean, you also have to deal with like being attacked, not only from the society of like women thinking that you're less than, because like we don't want no man who's no punk, but also like being attacked by other Black men, because like now I'm gonna make a song about you, like now I'm gonna like talk about you because you struggling, you weak. It's all these things as if it makes you weak to be human.
That's kind of the way it's been though.
Yeah.
And also like what people around you teach you, like how did you grow up? What did people say about, what language did your family, did your parents, did your dad even specifically use around feelings and emotions?
Yeah,
if you weren't even allowed to cry as a child, if somebody told you to stop crying, I'll give you something else to cry about. Right? Suck it up, don't do all that, go in your room, go bite yourself when you have emotions. Why it wouldn't be common practice for you to do that as an adult, to 100%. Go and share and be open.
Yeah, 100%. With a stranger. Yeah, all of that. And then, but then at the same time, you see how this becomes a negative cycle, because then you want these men to be in relationships with spouses, male or female, but with their spouses, we want them to be open. We want them to be vulnerable. How? How's way? how we gonna do that?
We don't give them the agency
Yeah.
to express that.
We don't
give
have
them
words.
practice.
We don't have language. Like, we're not
We
do
don't
that.
give them an avenue to do that in friendships, in families, in relationships, and all of the things.
And then it feels uncomfortable. It shows up uncomfortable. Like, it's not safe. All of that. And then we see how it affects the family, because then that normally sometimes goes into like negative coping. If I don't know how to deal with my emotions that are natural, because it's gonna happen, I'm gonna start doing other things in order to get those needs met, because I don't know how to deal with all of this uncomfortable stuff that you're bringing to me.
And that's also why a lot of black men get labeled angry, right? We have anger problems. I just have anger problems. I'm just a hothead, right? I just don't play with me, right? That's all it is. Just don't mess with me, right? And people have certain ways of being that are protective so that they don't have to share their emotions and do all that. But behind an anger problem, it's always an emotional problem, right? It's always a hurt feeling. It's always something else beneath the surface. As we say, anger is a secondary emotion.
Yeah.
It's not a primary emotion. It travels in pairs with something else.
Yeah.
So there's usually sadness, there's usually disappointment, there's usually hurt underneath whatever that is. And like, I think Charlamagne is really good about breaking that down, of just being like, it's really not about the thing. Like, whatever you're mad about, whatever you're making a fuss about, whatever you're doing, it's not about the thing. What's underneath that? Right? If you see somebody, I think Charlamagne talks about this a lot. If you see somebody blowing up in public, that is from years or however long it's been of something that has happened to that person. And we're only just seeing the tip of the iceberg. That's it. Yeah. We just saw the explosion. We didn't see the fire. We didn't see the matches. We didn't see the explosives that went with that.
Yeah. And so that's the hard part, because then society, like you said, labels them with these names as aggressive or criminals and all of these things, instead of just saying that they're human and that they need love and support.
That they're angry and they haven't had an outlet.
Yeah.
That they're hurt and they haven't had an outlet.
They need the same love and support that all the rest of us do. Yeah.
And they need the luxuries that we as women have, because it is different. We are socialized in a different way. That if we have feelings and emotions, somebody pays attention to that, somebody listens to that, somebody is asking us how we feel about that. It's almost as if we're two different species. Like Glennon Doyle Mellon, she kind of says that men and women speak two different languages, and that's kind of socialized. It's kind of on purpose, that like women can be more empathic, or they can speak about their feelings more because we're taught to.
But we're also
and
adding in on
the
the additional layer of race, because even like white women and black women, we have to handle things differently, because black women are supposed to have like this extra extra layer of strength, or we're supposed to, because we're all strong black women. But then like add that on too, it's in like, looking at men as in like they're supposed to be these strong black men, and that.
But it dehumanizes somebody.
Yes.
On every level, right? To think about, if a man is dehumanized, if a woman is dehumanized, if even more so a black woman is dehumanized, if even more so a man is dehumanized, right? Like, there's different layers of all of it, because you are less than human if you don't have feelings the way that I have feelings.
Yes.
Right? If your strength is so big and so large that you don't need the things that I need.
Yeah.
And so even if from some way, somehow that looks like a strength, it isn't a strength, because you're not human.
Yeah, 100%. And so like, okay, how do we offer support?
How do we support men in doing things?
I think that one of the biggest ways for me, what I would say,
like, what's the question?
I would say that one of the biggest things for me that says that how we support is to stop, kind of like you said, dehumanizing, but to stop dehumanizing even in ways that are like we think are subtle. Like stop making comments that like, okay, like we even have the context sometimes, and this could be a whole different layer about like light-skinned men and dark-skinned men. Light-skinned men are more sensitive. Like, Drake is a crier. So it's like stuff like that. Like we make fun of people for having emotions. Like when
we make fun of men.
Yes.
And black men especially for having emotions.
Yes.
Outside of angry.
Yes.
That's the difference. So like making fun of them less. Choosing our words on purpose about a reaction of just like, what you crying for? Like, you're so emotional, right? If your partner, your friend, your brother, anybody comes to you and they have an emotion and your reaction is, you're always crying, you're always doing that. Your words are not open arms.
Yeah.
If
And maybe
makes
if
sense.
we could normalize it, they could handle it better. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like if it wasn't, if I had the ability to express my emotions, I would probably know how to handle my emotions better. Versus feeling like that I can't express my emotions. Now I have to cry in the corner, and I have to suck it up, and I have to like
Or
shove
not
this
cry at
somewhere,
all.
yeah,
Yeah.
or shove this somewhere and pretend like it's not happening. And now I'm
Or go
irritated,
to
and
the
now I'm
gym.
angry, and yeah, all of these other things
Or play football.
because I don't have the space just to actually be able to process my emotions. Yeah.
Exactly. So, like, words matter. Using your words on purpose. Giving people the space in, like, a non-judgmental way. Right? I think also some men are just like, if I open up, then that's going to change the way people think about me after that. Right? Like, I'm not going to be able to come back from that. And just as people, as women, as, like, people who love black men in general, we need to just be more unconditional in our acceptance of people. Of just, like, however you want to show up is the way you need to show up. And we're going to talk about it. I'm not going to look at you differently. I'm not going to change anything about the way I act. None of that.
Yeah.
And we did not create this narrative, but we were all responsible for repairing it.
Yes.
If that makes sense, right? Like, if I didn't create the narrative that that's how black men are supposed to be, but I can contribute to it if I uphold that and make sure that they stay in that tiny little box that somebody has for them, and they can't be full human beings.
Yeah, 100%. And we can see how that can change the impact of like our black families, of our society, of just like how everything can be impacted by creating this space for our black men.
Speak on it, because how can black men raise healthy, well-adjusted, socially and emotionally intelligent children if they don't know how to do it themselves, but they also have to have someone else teach them that? So, like, it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, it's definitely a big like, you know, systemic issue. Because I think that I blame everything on slavery. Y'all know, y'all been here for a minute. Y'all know how I do. I think that, like you said, that we didn't create the narrative, but I'm gonna say that if I follow the narrative train back far enough, that's where I think it comes from. The like
Not the narrative train.
Yes, the like, you know, that we can't be soft because that's how we get hurt. Like, you know, we have to be strong.
I mean, it goes
we
with
have
the
to,
dehumanization, right? In order for you to subjugate a race full of people, you have to decide that something about them is not human. And part of that is, they're strong enough to deal with it. Oh, they got it. They can do that. They're superhuman, right? Even if, and somehow, you know, years later, centuries later, that feels like a good thing, it's still a part of that whole narrative. That's still the reason why black pain is not recognized, especially in women, and mortality rates and all that stuff. Like, it all connects. And so it's very hard not to see the through line between the way that we got to America till now. I mean, if you don't want to look, you don't want to look, but whatever.
Okay. But we say all this to say that we do want to recognize, we want to like say like how amazing it is to see these individuals that are out here right now showing, like, you know, providing examples of what it can look like when you start doing some of the work, and that you can like change that narrative and change the way that things look.
Yeah, because the research, if we're going to talk about research, the research says that when black men change and do the work, generations change, families change, right? It's systemic. There are lots of things systemic that we get that we don't get to control, that are not fair and that are not good. But one thing that we do have some ability to control is what our legacy looks like, as much as possible, and healing should be part of that legacy, right? Yeah. Which is our last question. Why do black men deserve to go through the glow up? Right, to go through the healing journey. And I think that's part of it. You deserve all the things that everybody else gets to get with ease. Okay? With ease, which is happiness, health, wealth, in many other types of ways. And that is cultivated through your mental health.
Yeah.
Because everything comes from your mental health.
I like all of that. I love it.
Warm and fuzzy.
I feel all warm and fuzzy. I like it. So, shout out to all the black boy joy,
doing the work,
all the black men glow ups,
Right. Famous or not.
Yes.
Even if you're not, we see you.
Yes, we see you.
Your family will be different because of you.
We appreciate you.
We say keep going, please.
Yes.
We need you. Just that's it. We need you.
Yeah. As always, guys, we hope that you love this video. Please like, please subscribe, please leave some comments down. Let us know what you want us to do next. Let us know how you're feeling. Let us know that you appreciate us, because we definitely appreciate you.
Peace.
And as always, stay mentally dope.